Bayern Munich have just played DC United, and I'm going to be talking about the player ratings from this match, how Bayern Munich lined up, and my general match reaction to Bayern Munich's first preseason friendly, the Bayern Munich's first match of this upcoming season. And I think that this match, it has to be split into two halves. So for both halves, I'll give my reaction and the player ratings and the manager rating for each half. So in terms of the first half just in general finished 3-0. It was sloppy at times. You could tell that the players were just getting back to form, that they hadn't played in a while, they hadn't played together in a while, and it was all a bit rusty. You could tell it was pre-season. Bayern went in an all-out attack formation, really, playing sort of like a 4-4-2-4 with four at the back and two midfielders, and Sabitzer, who was a defensive midfielder, and Vidovic, who was slightly ahead of him as an attacking midfielder, and then four up front with Sané left wing, Capado right wing, Gnabry and Mane, which is the striker partnership we've heard talked about a lot. They were playing that striker. And DC United created nothing in this first half. It was all Bayern going through. There were some sloppy touches, but there was also fast, energetic play. And it was generally pretty good for the first game of the preseason. We saw some nice player link-ups. And now let's get into the player ratings. I will start from the attack first. So I thought that Capado was about a 6.5. He won a penalty. He had a few nice dribbles in and around the opposition box. He got a few fouls, but he also wasn't very involved in the play. The play was more focused on the left wing, and I think this is a tactic Bayern will employ further in the season, as the left wing will be really strong with Sané, Mane, Gnabry, Davies, all on that left-hand side, so that's why I give him a 6.5. I thought that Gnabry had great interplay with Mane. We've seen a lot about that Gnabry-Mane partnership up front, and I can see them working out up front. Gnabry scored the goal. He was very lively. He was always making runs in behind the defense, and I thought this was quite effective, and it could be foreseeably effective in the future too. In terms of Mane, we finally got to see him play in Bayern Red, and it was very beautiful. He got a 7 rating from me. I think that he scored the penalty in the first few minutes. The keeper did get a touch on this, but he was industrious. He kept throwing his way into challenges. He kept showing his passion, and I think this is the passion that maybe Bayern lacked even with Robert Lewandowski. And I think he'll be a ferocious presser along with Thomas Muller, and you could see how he went for every ball. He was really determined, and even though he missed them one-on-one, he scored that excellent goal later on in the half, but this was later ruled out for offside. That's why he gets a solid 7 performance from me. And Sané was staying quite wide out with Davies. He was a bit sloppy as usual, but there were also some decent body feints from Sané. There was some decent composure, and I thought that Sané was getting back to his Man City best when he was allowed to attack plays on the width, and I'd like to see that Sané continue on the left wing. In terms of the midfield, it's just Vidovic who gets a 6.5. I think that he was like Sabitzer. He played some nice, tidy passes, but he was nothing spectacular. In terms of Sabitzer, though, he was my man of the half, if you will. He had some great cross-field passes, he had some great crosses, some great through balls, and he was playing a really Joshua Kimmich-esque role, doing everything in the midfield, as also acting as that anchor in the holding midfield, and he was really good. He scored a great goal, even though it was a deflection, and I thought that if we see this more from Sabitzer, it will be really good for Bayern in the future. In terms of the defense, it was Alphonso Davies, who I think gets a 7.5 rating, actually, because he was a bit sloppy, but he was really pacey going forward. There were nice interchanges with Sané, and this is what we want to see more of, and he was very dominant in tackling. I think he was the best defender, in fact. Upamecano was a 6.5. He was solid, not much to say. Nianzou gets a low 5.5 from me. He had some nice passes, but he was, as is always is, he was very brash. Typical mistakes from Nianzou, typical poor distribution at times, and I think that this warrants the 5.5 rating. In terms of Missouri, he can dribble. We saw that. He also went forward, and we saw that to good effect. So I think that'll be good for Bayern later on in the season. We actually don't have a one-dimensional team now. Our fullbacks can both push forward. He had some nice dribbles. He overhit a few crosses, so for that he gets a 6.5, but decent performance. And as for Neuer, there was nothing much to do. He gets a 6 rating. In terms of Nagelsmann, I'll give him a 7. I can't say much, really. It's a preseason game. You can't really say much about the tactics. But the forward line was constantly interchanging. Gnabry and Sané and Mane looked great up front, and this bodes well for Bayern's attacking in the future. And he figured out that you need to play Sané on the left, so this was also a good thing. A 7 rating for Nagelsmann in the first half. Now, for the second half, Bayern lined up in the same formation in the second half. Well, a very similar formation. It was 4 at the back, and there was 2 centre mids this time instead of 1 CDM and 1 attacking mid. It was 2 centre mids in Kimmich and Gravenberch, and then in the front line, 2 strikers were Xerxes and Muller. Left wing was Coman, and right wing was Paul Wanner, and it was much of the same, a bit sloppy. The players weren't trying super hard, but there was also some effort put into it, and let's get into the player ratings for this half again. So in terms of Joshua Xerxes, he got a goal, although it was a mere tap-in. He is a bit of a tap-in merchant, which we saw from his initial time at Bayern, from the treble-winning season, where he scored a few important goals, but they were tap-ins. And he didn't contribute much out of this, which is a story we've seen with Xerxes in the past. Muller will get, Xerxes got a 6. Muller will get a 9 out of 10. I thought he was the best player on the pitch today, my man of the match today. He had a great pass to Kingsley Coman for the 5th goal, a cross-field ball, through ball, and then Coman laid it on a plate to Xerxes, and he was great at pressing. He was playing as a striker in the 4-4-2, but he was constantly interchanging with Wanner, going through different formations and positions, and he had great back heeling, great playmaking. He was the man of the match. Wanner, I'll give him a 6. He didn't really do much. He interchanged quite a bit with Muller. He was a bit active, but he wasn't that impressive. Coman was a 7. He had a great touch on that Muller ball I mentioned for the Xerxes goal, and he was also very lively. He was doing constant little step overs. His dribbling was pretty decent, and I thought it was a good performance from Kingsley Coman. Hopefully he can continue this going into the season. I thought Kimmich was a general about a 6 out of 10. He was his usual self, industrious, but he was unspectacular. And Gravenberch was a 6.5, I thought, because he had some nice turns in the middle. He was agile, even for his height. He looked very good. He had a few shots, a few chances, which he missed, but he didn't influence the game too much. He was a calming presence. He was decent. He was solid. He was 6.5 out of 10. I thought that in terms of the defense, Pavard was about a 6. He was less offensive than Mazzarari, but that's all I can say about that performance. Not much to say. Ligt was a 5.5. He had a goal on his debut, I think his first touch on the pitch, which was great. But then the DC United goal, their first goal, was a shocking bit of defending from him. And him and Ulreich just stood by when the ball hit the post, and the opposition striker had faster reactions and was able to score the goal. While he also had a bit of disaster class in his defending, he was quite slow in challenges. He got a yellow card. Players often got past him, and he was subbed off with an injury. So that wasn't a great start to his Bayern career, but it's fine. It's just a preseason. It doesn't really matter. He's jet lagged. It's okay. Hernandez, I would give a 6. He was too passive in some of his defending, especially for the second DC United goal, but not much to say apart from that. Generally decently solid. And Stanisic, also not much to say, a solid 6 out of 10. He didn't have much to do with DC United, didn't have many attacks, and that was that. Ulreich, like De Ligt, as I mentioned, he stood still in DC United's first goal, and they need to be on that. They need to be like a shark, ready to pounce, ready to save the goal from being conceded. But he made up for it with 2 great saves. One, which saved the certain goal, and a second one, which didn't save the second goal, actually. It was the save before the second goal, but he could do nothing to stop the rebound coming in. But it is what it is. Ulreich did a decent job. Now onto the manager rating, and I think that Nagelsmann should only get 5.5 here. I didn't like the formation at all. I'm not a big fan of the 4-4-2, especially for Bayern, because I feel like there's no real role for Thomas Müller. He was constantly drifting out wide. He wasn't staying in those central areas that he thrives in. And I think that it's just better to play a 4-2-3-1. Why can't he play a 4-2-3-1? Well, those are my thoughts on Bayern's friendly with DC United. We won 5-1 in the end. Let me know your thoughts on the friendly. Who played the best? Do you like the new Nagelsmann system of a 4-4-2 or a 4-2-2-2? Some might say. Let me know in the comments below. Goodbye.